Welcome to another exciting edition of Cambridge InsideOut, the sequel. My name is Robert Winners, and with me is my lovely co-host,
Susanna Sagat. Welcome. We're so happy you're here tonight.
Actually, you have to come in closer, I think.
Ew.
There we go. Ew,
Okay.
yuck. Yeah. And our focus for this program will
Is
be...
the issues again. I'm not an issues type person for these shows. These are rough. Although you did a really good job on the city council issues, I want to tell you.
But we're going to today, or in this program, talk about the issues of the
committee.
school committee and the Cambridge Public Schools.
All right, so since this is
Take it away, Susanna.
since this is the school committee issue, I'm going to start off, Robert, with a quick pop quiz.
Oh, no.
You ready? Okay. So what?
How many Frenchmen can't be wrong? That's a line from Groucho Marx in Animal Crackers.
And what's the answer?
He never gave one.
Okay. Okay, so back to real schoolwork here. What do you think is what we really expect from the school committee? What's their job, their main number one job for school committee members?
You know, I always get this question, I get this wrong, because I always think it's to look into education of the kids. But then everybody says, oh, no, that's for the school officials and the superintendent to deal with. The school committee are policymakers. They don't deal with the specifics of the education. So I always get it wrong.
So I'm going to give you, I think, an 82 on that.
Alrighty.
That's pretty good.
All right.
I think that pretty much basically what their responsibilities are to hire, fire, and evaluate the superintendent. You know, they're not supposed to be there to micromanage. They're supposed to be there to make sure they hire the right person to take care of all the money and all the people, and then make sure that the person's doing a good job, and if they're not, that they get rid of them and bring in a new person.
And hopefully provide guidance as
Oh,
appropriate.
of course,
Right?
yes.
Not just yell. Right.
Well, yelling's okay, but
Yelling's
it's
okay,
not
too.
a good thing.
All right.
All right, so considering that that is really what we need from school committee members, besides the guidance and camaraderie and making policy statements, I thought, well, maybe the right thing to do here so let me back up a little bit. So I was on the school committee, and there I was really engrossed with all the issues, and it meant a great amount of deal to me. And then I'm not on the school committee anymore, and my kids have graduated, and so the school committee issues have sort of taken a back seat. Like most people in this city, we care. We want to make sure the money's spent right. We want to make sure that all the kids are really well taken care of and are well educated and become great citizens of our Commonwealth. But it's not like what Tip O'Neill used to say. You know, the hardest job he ever had was being on the school committee, because it's so intense. So, not knowing the issues, Robert gave me a homework assignment, which I'm forever grateful for, is he told me, go find out what these issues are.
Got my red pen.
I know, and I'm dreading this. So I want to just have a little fine print here that I'm not an expert at this. What I did was I did what anybody on the street would do who wants to find out about the issues. I went on the websites of the candidates who were running. I looked at whatever I could from my home, so it's not perfect. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes here, but this is what someone off the street's going to find out. So as long as we're looking at it like that, I can go on with this. Okay, so seeing that what the superintendent does is something that people need to evaluate, I decided I'm going to look and see what the superintendent thinks are the top issues. Because don't you think if you're running and you want to evaluate the superintendent, you say, okay, here's his issues, here's how I feel about it, and here's how I'm either going to change his mind or I'm going to go with him and support it, right?
Good start.
Okay, well, no one's doing that. So the superintendent, his priorities. And this comes from the minutes of the citywide school advisory, and I will get this wrong, but it's just how I learn. So for the elementary schools, provide struggling learners with increasing levels of intervention. Number 2, the Department of Justice of the United States ruled that Massachusetts provides unequal opportunities for English language learners, and so teachers must have a 40-hour course over 3 years to teach English language learners. 3, junior kindergarten through 5 literacy curriculum has to happen to justify the $900,000 in extra state funds we get for Reach to the Top. 4, We need to implement the Wraparound Zone, which means it's a program like the Harlem Center,
Harlem
Children's, yes. That it's an early education and family education program, and so that families in Baby U get first dibs on 3- and 4-year-old slots at the Fletcher.
Right.
5, that we have this quarterly music program at the Morse and the Tobin, that we do a math review for fiscal year 15, and that we do a curriculum study on world languages. We don't have time for world languages, it squeezes out other programs, what are we going to do about it? So that's what he wants to do in the elementary schools. In the upper schools, he wants to strengthen.
And upper schools in Cambridge means.
It's brand new.
And it means it's grades 6, 7, 8, or 5, 6, 7, 8.
6, 7, 8.
6, 7, 8. All right.
I think it's part of the innovation agenda. So, excuse me, I'm all choked up about this issue. So for the upper schools, need to strengthen curriculum and instruction in math, science, social studies, and English arts.
And especially math.
So everyone's doing Facing History and Ourselves this year,
Right.
and everyone's doing the Right Question Project. So for English language arts, he wants to look at the curriculum and move some of the literature from the 9th grade to the 7th, and so that 7th grade teachers in the upper schools work with the high schools, and there's more of integration to the kids. Report cards really need to be improved. They're not doing a good job right now.
You mean they need to be more A's and less F's?
Exactly.
Okay.
And 6th grade transition to the upper school needs attention.
All right.
So what I thought was interesting about this is that he says that for world languages, which are sort of on hiatus from what I can tell, and special education services at the upper school are totally dependent on the negotiations to lengthen the school day with the teachers and just move it into a longer school day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my understanding that negotiations have been settled and that I'm not sure that the days have been lengthened. So if a lot of what is happening revolves around lengthening the school day and it hasn't happened, then what happens with world languages? What happens with special ed services in the upper levels? So that's just something to think about.
I think that's important to keep in mind that there are human beings deliver these services to the kids.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything is subject to negotiation.
Absolutely. And the part that I thought was striking is he says that quality of teaching is all over the map. We have fantastic teachers. We have teachers who still need some training. But in essence, that he would like a district-wide plan. You know, deal with it. Don't go school by school. And he says that Cambridge resists consistency and coherence, and the culture is that each school creates its own style, its own brand, and that we need to think district-wide.
That's actually seems to me, just thinking back historically, a bit of a departure from when the controlled choice program was established in the wake of Boston school busing, where there was actually an intention to have every school have its own
program,
qualities and different styles. So it was like, it was like a marketplace where you could pick your school based on the differences, not so much the uniformity.
And that's exactly what's interesting to me. If I'm on the school committee and my job is to evaluate the superintendent, and the superintendent puts the line on the sand and says, it can't, we shouldn't be doing this one school, it's its own school thing. And then you have candidates who are running by saying, and we must empower each upper and elementary school community to pursue its own unique brand of excellence. What is it you're evaluating? If the superintendent says, this is what I'm going to do, and you come in with an agenda saying the schools all have their own power, how do you evaluate? What position do you put yourself in?
It is a bit challenging. It seems, one thing, again, speaking as a mathematics person, that there are certain subjects at school that lend itself a little bit more toward uniform requirements than others. For example, I wouldn't want to have one school teaching minimal mathematics skills and then expecting that they're going to compete. It shouldn't even use the word compete, but perform reasonably well when they get into the middle schools and then on into the high schools.
Right.
So something like mathematics curriculum, I could imagine that being something that lends itself toward getting a little more uniformity and consistency among schools. But many other subject areas would seem to me that there'd be a lot more flexibility and freedom. As long as everybody can read, then there's a lot of a lot of room to move in there, it would seem.
I think the issue of mathematics is like, I think it's a hot issue among the candidates. And I think there are people who say, just put all the students in a classroom together, regardless of homogeneous classrooms, regardless of ability, and teach them. And other ones are saying, well, you have to give more instruction, different teachers, maybe have 2 teachers in the classroom to deal with the different skill levels.
Yeah,
And that issue has been happening for years and years and years, and it's not over. It's a hot issue.
You see, to me, the way I look at it is that, if you talk about a class of first graders, I don't think anybody wants to sort of level the classes of first graders. Typically, we just first graders, they're learning math or whatever.
Right.
But I think by the time everybody's clearly in college, everybody's leveled, right? Choosing different levels depending on their background, skills, and interests, and that's definitely true at the high school level. So the question to me is it's not so much a matter of whether you should or shouldn't. It's a matter of when it's most appropriate to start doing that to some degree. And I think some of the hottest debates I heard in the lead up to the innovation agenda had to do with the mathematics policies, where there was some promise that it would be some opportunities, because it would be 88 students approximately per middle school, so that there would be, if you had certain so-called advanced learners in mathematics, they would have be able to accommodate them in a particular way. And then there was a little bit of a bait and switch, and that when it came time to actually implement the innovation agenda, they pretty much said, sorry, everybody in the same class. And I know that some parents, that's controversial with some parents, and it's definitely one way to distinguish some of the school committee candidates is how they discuss that issue.
Yeah. You sound like a candidate. That's pretty
And
good.
if elected, I shall know.
Well, actually, what I did find is that all of these candidates are good candidates. They all have...
That's really true.
They're really good. I enjoyed
9 for 9
finding
on
out
the school
about
committee,
them.
yeah.
And I think that whoever wins, we're in a good place.
Yeah.
They will do a good job. I did a very unscientific analysis of what the major issues are, and the first ones that come up are academic, the ones who get the most votes, academic achievement and special education needs.
Right.
Which, these issues have been going on forever, and they continue to go on, and my guess is that they're such important issues, they will continue to go on forever. The next layer down is communications and the control choice issue. And it's interesting because some of the candidates saying communications are pretty good.
By communication, we just mean
Everything.
talking to parents, parents talking to kids, kids talking to teachers. What?
It means, how in the show we did on the city council issues,
Yeah.
there was discussion about technology and communication and what people expect and how to get information. I think it's the same thing, but about school issues.
Yeah,
Like,
but-
for example, the innovation agenda is wasn't that the huge issue all last year?
Last 2 years,
Last
really.
2 years?
Yeah.
Okay, so I go on the school committee's website to find out where are we now with the innovation agenda. And the last article I see is dated June of 2012. So I know there's things going on, and I know that people are very involved with this issue, but that's a slight communication glitch.
That is.
Someone who's not as involved, there has to be more information out there. And
So-
I think that there's a lot of debate among the candidates about that.
It's also sort of poor salesmanship if you're implementing a new program or selling a new car. You want to sort of get the word out there, and you want
Right.
to sell it, sell it, sell it.
Right.
And the way people access information these days is usually web-based.
Right. So communications is big, and controlled choice. Now, you know about the controlled choice program in Cambridge, don't you?
I do. I've always been perplexed by it. I used to ask one of the former, actually current school committee members who's not running next year. I said, well, what would actually happen if you just sort of eliminated that and just sort of went back to neighborhood schools and drew district lines judiciously? Would that be any worse than we have today? What we have?
And what was the answer?
Usually you get kind of, people sort of are wedded to the way things are, And when you sort of toss in a radical notion about like that, they generally don't even want to hear it. But it seems to me that for as long as I can remember, every, several times a year, there would be some sort of argument about the right ways to tweak the system and to sort of engineer it. And I sometimes think that the best way to engineer something is just to tear it to pieces and then build it back from scratch. And chances are it might be more stable and easier to maintain that way.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think that everyone's hearts are in the right place. People
Definitely.
are trying to deal with the issues that we have in the city, the achievement gap, and trying to figure out, is there a way that we can solve the problems that we have, and by controlling the choice. But it continues to be an issue. Some candidates think that it's going okay, but not really, that still needs to get a huge review. Others are saying there's not enough information out, and that we want to get to the goal of having, where the crisis hits is when you're a parent and you want to enroll your child for kindergarten. That's when it hits, because
Right.
you think,
It's
I'm
real.
going to go to the neighborhood school, or I'm going to go to this school, and you find
why
that-
didn't I get one of my first
exactly.
three choices?
And if you don't get your first three choices,
Or first choice, number
or
one.
your first choice, you say, do I really want to stay in the school system and send my child to a school that I wasn't even thinking about?
Yeah.
Or do I bail?
Right.
And it's a really big issue. And so to get to a system where parents automatically get one of their first three choices is where they're trying to go to. And that's really hard to do.
Right, because I think traditionally there have always been some, I guess they like to use the word oversubscribed schools and undersubscribed schools. And, if everybody wanted it to get into a particular school, there's no way you could accommodate
Right.
everybody.
And what one of the candidates said, and that goes back to communications, is that a lot of the way that parents are choosing one of the three schools is by word of mouth, is by hearsay. And if we had better communications from all of the elementary schools, so you actually can see how great all of them are in their own special way, that parents wouldn't be so stuck saying it's got to be these three choices because the other ones don't fit. So it goes
Right.
back to the communications issue.
Absolutely.
Then the third level down is the issues of English learners and world languages, family engagement. Are the goals that we have clear enough and transparent enough so that we understand where the money's going, and where is the money going, and are we spending it in a way that we understand why we're so expensive? And
And Cambridge is still, tops in the state?
and we still
for a
struggle
child?
over that. We
Yeah.
still struggle. Now, apparently, the Department of Education is trying to get together all the metrics for all of the districts to see how they spend their money and what it means. And so I think we might be able to do some comparisons and see where is the money going. Why are we allocating so much towards the schools? So we'll see.
Do you know offhand whether the typical Cambridge number of children in a particular elementary program, how that compares to like a city of Boston? Do we have smaller schools, bigger schools, or compared to other
I don't
places?
remember that being part of my homework assignment.
It was a pop quiz. Okay. Unfair. It was absolutely unfair.
I do know
I
that.
apologize
No,
profusely.
don't be silly. We need to look that up.
Absolutely.
What we are is a smaller school district. We have very few schools, and compared to Boston, and we have a much smaller school population. So you'd think we'd be able to get a handle on it more than Boston does.
Yeah.
But that's a very good question, and we should ask it at the next candidates' night because they will know the answer.
Right.
And last in this third layer is keeping the superintendent accountable. It's like, this is fine, he's doing a good job, but we got to keep him accountable.
I remember in the previous superintendent there was a lot more friction and controversy. I kind of tuned out maybe over this past year once the innovation agenda got started. I don't actually know what the current, how is the relationship working out, whether it's all happy and friendly or if there's growing friction or what.
Right.
I have no idea.
Maybe they're doing a better job keeping it out of the public venue. You know, maybe they're dealing with the issues in the public and dealing with those kind of issues outside. That's a good point. That's another question for a candidate's night. Good job. Fourth layer down, out of school time and assessment and the ability to duplicate programs that do well. So out of school time, that used to be a huge issue. It means...
And it's a big crossover with city council and city administration.
Public and private partnerships, city council. It means, what are the kids doing when the bell rings at 2 o'clock and they're supposed to go home? You know, and so there's the kids up to the 6th grade where there are after-school programs, and there's the kids after 6th grade when there are no more after-school programs, but these kids are out there with nothing to do, so theoretically. So out-of-school time is really important, and what it means to an extended day or not, you know, a school day is also important. So that's a huge issue, and it's still out there. And then how do we assess programs? And if there is a good program, wouldn't it be nice if we were able to duplicate it in other places? And then the last layer, universal pre-K, professional development, should we be teaching to the test, and environmental issues, building things that are environmentally friendly, paying attention to environmental causes. So those are the issues that I was able to develop in my homework assignment. And I could be wrong in all this, but that's what I'm turning in for today.
I think, no, that's pretty good. Give you at least a B+. No.
Thank you.
Actually, there's one issue there is another crossover. It has to do with school building construction. Right now, let's see, right across the street from my house there, we're housing the King School while they're rebuilding the Putnam Avenue School, which is going to be one of the hybrid schools. That's a elementary program within a building, as well as one of the new middle schools. Or am I supposed to say upper schools? I think we say upper.
Why is that? Why can't we call them middle schools?
We just skip the middle? We just
it's
have lower and upper? Okay.
No, lower and upper, and then the high school.
Okay,
right?
so upper is, high school is the upper school.
We need a definition of terms
That'll
here.
work. But while they're
the uppermost school.
So we have all these wonderful kids across the street back in the old Longfellow School building, which is nice to hear them again. But they're doing a major construction project on Putnam Avenue for the King School, the new King School, which I guess it'll probably also have some other name having to do with its status as an upper school as well. The Putnam Avenue Upper School, probably. But once that's complete, then you roll it right over, and at least the proposal is that you move right into yet another gigantic capital project of rebuilding one of the other upper schools. Not sure, I don't think they've even decided which would be next in the queue. And then another, and then another. And so we're really looking down, if you project over a period of the next decade, somewhere, I mean, it's probably...
All the schools, right?
Well, I don't know about all the schools, but certainly the chief priority in the first few rounds here had to do with the upper schools, because they weren't really built for what the purpose of the innovation agenda says they're going to be used. So it's a lot of money involved, and I have heard that one of the reasons there was some friction during the budget process this year between the school committee and city council was that they wanted a little more clarity about what the long-term fiscal picture was with.
I see.
Yeah, so if 3 years down the road.
Because the city council cares about that.
Yeah.
They have some say over it.
Right, and the thing is, it's potential. I don't know if it would happen, but if the economy doesn't just soar through the roof and it's sort of just cap, you might actually have a situation where city councilors and city administration has to make tough choices in order to cover the construction costs for the schools. You bond some of it, maybe all of it, but the thing is you still have to pay the bills. And it used to be it was something like a 90% reimbursement from the state for school building.
I think we're doing some of them without any state
We're doing some of it without none at all. And so this is a huge issue, I think, that's on the borderline between city council and school committee consideration. There were other issues in the bit of a kerfuffle that they had this spring during budget negotiations. But.
Speaking of construction, I shouldn't ask a question I don't know the answer to, but I know that a decade ago, there was talk about moving the administration building from rental property to its own building. And I
Did
just,
this
in my
happen?
homework, I saw that in 2011, there was discussion about needing to do it. So,
Didn't they move, I thought
did
they
it
were supposed to-
happen?
I thought they were supposed to move it over to the Upton Street, over to the old Graham and Parks building.
Did that happen?
I thought so.
Oh, good.
But, you know, in addition to the Amigos program, which I think is housed in there, if I
Yeah.
got that right, please fill in the comments below, as they say.
This is where we should have a call-in show, so you can call and tell us how wrong we
that's
are.
totally
It's totally
wrong.
wrong.
Totally wrong, yes. You know, speaking personally, I'll have to say that I'm quite thrilled that in my Harvard Extension School multivariable calculus class, we have 4 CRLS students this semester, plus one of the teachers. So
That's fantastic.
so it's great. Yeah, it's nice to have this connection.
Well, I think overall, things are going okay in the city, don't you?
Yeah, I think most people are reasonably satisfied. I think just specifically with the schools, the only real serious concerns I heard were some people who felt maybe their children, because of they haven't worked out all the kinks in the innovation agenda, that
Oh, yeah.
some of the students were not feeling appropriately challenged.
Yeah.
That's one of the complaints I
See,
heard.
for me, it's like these issues, they keep coming up over and over again. There's never a resolution. We keep struggling over it. For me, the most important issue is that people go vote, that they get out of their houses, and it's like a muscle you have to keep exercising. You have to vote. So even if all these issues we talked about in the school committee today don't really matter to you, and even if all the issues we talked about on the city council, the show before this, don't matter to you, just go out and vote anyway, because you'd be a good mentor to the kids in the neighborhoods. It's really important.
Absolutely.
And I think we're out of time. This is
That's right.
Cambridge Inside.
Out.